A few minutes ago, Ted Munster came up to my table and he said, you know, an award like this is going to cost you at least $10,000. Isn't that what we like about Ted? He's so smooth and subtle. I'd just like to make a couple introductions. My 43-year partner, Miss Vanity Fair 1968, Marcia. Bloop, bloop, bloop. My 37-year business partner, Paul Schiller, and his wife, Connie. And my 56-year-old brother and his wife, Marlis. He now runs the company that Paul and I started. I came to USD in the 60s. If you remember what it was like, it was a raucous, riotous, difficult time in America. The government was drafting our fraternity brothers out of the fraternity house to Vietnam and shipping them back in pine boxes. It was a tough time. I remember Mike McGinney, Mike Michaels, there were others. It was an awful time, and it was a time in which Paul and I both arrived on campus insecure, not knowing what to do, trying to find our place in the world. In those days, there was a journalism department here, and it only had 2 professors. One of them was Roger Van Omeren, and the other one was Bob Simmons. Now, Bob took Paul under his wing and mentored him. He taught him about graphics and being a photographer, and he lived with him, critiqued his work, and taught Paul how to do things. And Roger Van Omeren took me and said, you know, I think you can write. And he nurtured me, and he edited it, and he challenged me over and over. And those 2 professors took Paul and I, and what did they ingest into us? They ingested us the belief of these words, I can. Is that not true, Paul? You can have Harvard and Yale and Princeton. Give me a prairie professor with good values who wants to invest in the lives of his students and to teach them to say, I can, and we'll change the world. That's what USD does. So if you run into Lawrence and Schiller or Paul and I or whatever, you just need to remember there were 2 people here who really cared. Who really cared. And of course I got my wife here. You know, as I courted her, we began to compare notes on things we were compatible in. And she looked at me and she said, you know, Craig, I never got 1 B in college. Now, Paul and I, if you added our grade points together, you might approach something respectable. She said, I only got 1 B, I should make it correct, in all of college. And I looked at her and I said, gee, honey, me too. I'm very honored. Thank you. But I mean what I say. USD changed my life. When I graduated, the Brookings Register was looking for a new editor. They had 21 applicants. 20 were from the SDSU School of Journalism, and then there was me from little USD Journalism Department, and I don't know why, but they picked me. It only goes to show you can go anywhere from here. Even to Brookings. God bless you, and thank you so much.
Our 3rd recipient is Dr. Jerry Popham, a 1985 graduate of USD School of Medicine. Dr. Popham has been widely recognized for his professional work in microsurgical techniques, specializing in ophthalmic and intraocular procedures. But tonight, he's being recognized for his public service. Dr. Popham is the founder of the About Face Foundation. For nearly 20 years, the foundation has made annual trips to Vietnam, where he has provided no-cost pediatric facial correction surgery, training for local medical staff, and medical and surgical supplies to hospitals. In addition to providing direct medical care, The foundation has worked with the Vietnamese medical community to identify the country's most promising surgeons, providing them scholarship and opportunity to train in the United States, all in keeping with the foundation's core objective, which is to participate in the active redemption of hope in those who need it most. Please join me in celebrating Dr. Jerry Popham's humanitarian service.
Thank you, Kirsten, for that kind introduction, and thank you to the University President Abbott, to the Alumni Association. Until a few minutes ago, and indeed when I walked in tonight, I was, you may have seen me, I was looking under tables. I was looking behind doors because I was sure this was a practical joke being played on me by one of my old fraternity brothers or high school buddies from Lincoln High School in Sioux Falls. But only now do I realize that I'm being honored here tonight. I am deeply grateful for that, and certainly must be the least deserving recipient in the history of this award, but thank you. I remember the day when I moved to South Dakota with my parents, who have joined me here tonight. We came to Sioux Falls in January of 1974. And I spent the first several days trying to make myself believe that 25 below zero was compatible with human life. I then spent several more days understanding that the stories my brothers had told me about snow snakes, the kind that slither under the snow and reach out through the crust and grab you and pull you down, that was not real. But through my days in South Dakota, I learned that the harshness of the climate builds character into its people, and I have taken the heart of the people of South Dakota with me everywhere I've gone. Kirsten mentioned that I'm an oculoplastic surgeon. That's kind of a hybridization between plastic surgery and ophthalmology. And many of you have never heard of that. Many physicians have never heard of that. I recently had opportunity in this political season to explain that to one of our national political leaders. Of course, I was at a fundraiser, the only way I would have access to a national political leader. And it was one of those awkward moments. I met this esteemed gentleman and was introduced, and at that awkward moment, the crowd around me disappeared. And it was just the two of us speaking. And he said, so I understand that you're a surgeon. I said, yes, sir, I am. And he said, can you tell me about your practice? And I said, certainly. I'm an oculoplastic surgeon, so I do a variety of things primarily on the face, but I'm primarily an eyelid surgeon. And he looked at me and he said, you know, I have never heard of an eyelid surgeon. How does a guy get interested in that? And in one of those moments of uncontained mischievousness, I looked this man right in the eye and I lied to him. I told him that in my days at the University of South Dakota in medical school, I struggled, and that I really wasn't cut out to be a physician, and that in the end, as a graduation approached, the dean came to me, not Dean Nettleman, she's new, but the dean came to me and said, listen, Popham, you know, you're really not cut out for this. I don't think you really have what it takes to be a physician, but if you will guarantee to us that you'll focus on one tiny part of the body, maybe like an eyelid, we'll let you go through. And then, of course, the joke was on me because it was one of those moments. He was a busy man. He looked at me. I waited for the crack of a smile. I thought maybe he would understand it was a joke. Never got there. He shook my hand and said, hey, great meeting you, and he left. I've never been able to tell him anything other.